uwager.lv, sportsbook, and casino. Sign up today at uwager.lv, the premier online sportsbook, taking wagers since 1998. The most player-friendly lines, weekly juice specials, and a true dime line in MLB. Unique casino platforms with thousands of games. Play poker, high stakes, low stakes, or tournament play. uwager.lv, what we offer. Free same-day payouts. Customer service and wagering support, 24/7, year-round. Free monthly rebates on your action and daily casino rebates. Contests, free bets, best bonuses, and giveaways. Generous referral program. Get an 80% free play bonus on your first deposit, up to $1,000. Sign up today, and use promo code SPORTSWEB. Remember, you can't win if you don't play.
What's going on, guys? It's the Sports Web here on a Tuesday night. I hate Tuesdays. I'm your host, Peter Blake. You know what? I felt like I had to come on here because there was so much Bucs news today. We got J.C. Allen of Pewter Report coming on. We got Mr. Tampa Bay, Best of the Bay, Ray Kennedy coming on with us, talking about all the reports. I get it. The intro is probably not the best, but guess what? I'm not going to get flagged. But how we start off the Sports Web on a Tuesday, because you guys got to pump me up here. You definitely got to get on the phone lines. Bring your passion. Bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. Open phone line, 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. The other number, 727-409-7528. It's 727-409-7528. Still can't get that number down. Let me go back out to the comments here really quick because I don't want to neglect you. I know they're coming fast and furious. First, says Troy Polamalu. Charles Richardson says, whoa, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
I'm never usually here live on Tuesdays, but you know what? Once again, there was a lot of things to talk about. We're definitely going to talk about them with you here on the Evolution. We don't care about Noodle Arm Brady. We want Derek Carr. There's a lot of people who care about Tom Brady, so stop the nonsense.
This guy sucks.
I tell you what, let's go out to Tampa Bay, Ray. I know you're out, and let's go out to the phone line. Welcome to the Evolution. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Eric from Tampa.
What's going on, Eric? How you doing tonight? Welcome to the Sports Web.
I'm doing great, man. How about you?
Doing great, buddy.
Man.
We got Tampa Bay Ray Kennedy. Say hello.
Hello, Ed. Eric.
Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
Man, do you guys like this OC candidates? What you guys take, man? Maybe Keith. I like that guy, Keith. I like that guy, Keith Berry. I like it.
Jim Bob Cooter. Is that who you're talking about?
No, Keith Kubiak.
Keith Kubiak. Okay. Yeah, Clint Kubiak, not Keith. Clint Kubiak, who did some things with the Broncos. Yes.
Or the Vikings, or the Vikings wide receiver coach. I don't mind him either.
Right, Keenan McCardell. Yes. I'll tell you what. I'm going to go out to Tampa Bay, Ray Kennedy here. Get your thoughts on these candidates that got announced today as we're waiting for J.C. Allen of Pewter Report to kind of break it down. But your first thought here of hearing about some of these candidates. Welcome to the Evolution.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, Pete, and good talking to you, Eric. So, Jim Bob Cooter, right, the passing game coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We know he's been around a block a few times. He was actually in Detroit at some point as an offensive coordinator for one of those defensive-minded coaches. And other than the fact that he's got a name that sounds like it comes straight out of Deliverance,
is Enos and is a Boss Hog coming with them? I mean, what is this? The Dukes of Hazzard? Kind of describe. Hold on here. Kind of describing the offense, if you will, because it was definitely a hazard with the 18 points that were scored. But go ahead, Eric.
Someone canceled their interview today. Someone canceled.
Yes, Pep Hamilton. He's not going to interview. Well, I mean, he wants to stay with the Texans. He's still got 2 years on his contract. And as the great Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times mentioned, his son is playing high school football. So I definitely think that plays a part in it. As
why you want to be a Texan to lose the organization? You can come to the Bucs and win now.
Well, because you got 2 years, and once again, your son is playing high school football in Houston. I think those things you have to take into account at the end of the day.
Another name I got out there is Press Taylor. Press Taylor, brother to Zach Taylor. He's currently the offensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But you got to imagine it would take a lot to try to get him away from Jacksonville. I mean, because they saw
you guys. Why not Eric the enemy?
Eric the enemy.
Damn it.
Listen, it just started. We just heard some candidates today, so I'm not ready to sit here and say they're not going to interview them. There's a lot of things that remains to be seen at this point.
Why not Bill O'Brien?
Bill O'Brien, he's going back to the Patriots.
He's going to the New England Patriots.
Let's book up. Now Tom Brady's going back to New England for a book ending.
No, Bill O'Brien. Now listen, I got a story for you, Eric.
Sure, go ahead.
Mac Jones was at Alabama, and Bill O'Brien went to Alabama. Was been there
Eric,
the
thanks
last.
a lot for the call. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Bill O'Brien came into Alabama when Mac Jones was just getting drafted by the New England Patriots this last year, and Mac Jones actually stayed back and taught the Alabama offensive schemes that he'd been running there to Bill O'Brien, so that Bill could then instill it as part of the offensive coordination he was doing for those Alabama Crimson Tide. So bringing Bill O'Brien back to the New England Patriots and with Mac Jones at quarterback, that says to me 7 days a week and twice on game day that those two are going to make that special connection. Bill O'Brien likes what Mac Jones does. Mac Jones is ready to put his nose to the grindstone. He wants to be a player. He wants to be the guy, and that's what's going to happen with those two. So Bill O'Brien going back to the New England Patriots, that does not tell me that Tom Brady goes back there to play a second-string quarterback or a passing game coordinator.
Well, I think, and again, they have Mac Jones there, a young quarterback who struggled last year under Matt Patricia's system. Excuse me. And again, they needed something there. They needed, again, Bill Belichick is familiar with him, and he's done some great things with the New England Patriots. I felt like that was the way in order to attract Brady back because they're familiar with each other. He's been in a Bill O'Brien offense before. Again, Jim Bob Cooter, I get it. Offensive coordinator job, veteran coach. He's done some good things with Detroit. Also last year, helped Jacksonville rank 10th in passing offense with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. So
yes,
I get it. It's a funny name, but he is a veteran coach. He has had some success. Do we assume that if they do hire him, that the Bucs are ready to move on? Again, this is what we do here on the Sports Web. You speculate a little bit, but
right.
I kind of feel like this is an exciting move to hire him and get Tom Brady back. Is this the kind of move you make to get Brady back, in your opinion?
Well, being that he is the passing game coordinator for those Jacksonville Jaguars, maybe that would be your Hail Mary pitch to Tom Brady. Say, look, we're not going out and getting a coach that wants a running game. We're going out and getting a passing game coordinator, and we want to still give you all the pieces that you need here. But I think what I saw in Tom Brady at the end of this last season and from Todd Bowles is we thought we had a passing game coordinator and we didn't have any kind of running game. And we saw what the Buccaneers were able to do without any kind of running game to set up the play action pass, to get the heat off of Tom Brady and to get him time to throw the balls down the field. So unless Jim Bob Cooter is also one hell of a running game coordinating coach or has somebody he brings in with him, then I'm going to say that, he's just a name. A name that I like would be Todd Monken, who was the offensive coordinator for Dirk Kotter back in 2018. And he was working with Jameis Winston, and he gets fired because, Bruce came in and brought all his guys in there, and we were better for it. We won a Super Bowl 2 years later.
Sure.
But you know what? Tom Brady rides off into the sunset. Maybe he goes to a team. Maybe he goes to a team and Blaine Gabbert goes to a team because Blaine is in his – maybe those two feel like they could go be a 1-2 punch on a team that's a couple of pieces away. Maybe a Vegas team or maybe a Giants or Jets team or something. But here's what I like. Todd Monken, and he was here in 2018. Who was the quarterback he was working for as offensive coordinator for your Buccaneers in 2018?
Jameis Winston.
And Jameis Winston's going to be freed, my baby. You want to talk?
I'm not gonna.
Come on.
We've already mentioned that. I tell you what, we're gonna hold off on that for a minute.
Okay.
Let's go out to Mr. J.C. Allen here of Pewter Report. Welcome to the evolution of Sports Talk Television. A lot of things to talk about, as always here, JC. And let's start with the report today from Jeremy Fowler. Teams around the league expect the Raiders to aggressively tweak. Fowler. The Raiders believe Tom Brady. This is why I hate Tuesdays. The Raiders believe Tom Brady would consider signing with them if he returns for the 2023 season. The Raiders are one of about 3 teams Brady would consider. The Bucs are not completely out of it. Your thoughts? Welcome to the evolution.
What's up, JC?
Hey, what's going on there, Ray Kennedy? No, I think I've maintained that this entire time, Peter. I was on here the other day and I was talking about it. I think if Brady is going to play anywhere, I believe that's going to be in Tampa Bay. Again, it just comes down to proximity with his kids. These are 45-minute plane ride, 40-minute plane ride down to Miami there and back. You can do that in a day. Vegas is a 5-hour plane ride, from Miami, 4.5-hour plane ride. It's just a long time. And it just provides him less time to see him. So I just don't, I just don't see that as a real possibility. I know all the pieces are there. Josh McDaniels worked with in the past. I know the whole situation there with the Darren Waller and Devontae Adams, potentially Josh Jacobs back. They have pieces on offense, but that line is still trash. That defense was terrible. And that's not something they're going to be able to fix. It's not a complete team that's ready to win a championship in the AFC, which has very tough teams, as we can see in the Bengals, in the Bills, in the Chiefs. Not to mention, it's in the same division as the Chiefs, as the Chargers. Two teams are in the playoffs. Denver, I don't think they're going to get worse, to be honest with you. I think they'll probably get better. And maybe not playoff caliber better, but they're not going to be the joke they were this year. So I just don't, I don't see it as a realistic landing spot. Same thing with San Francisco because of the same issues. They are a team that is poised to win and potentially could win this year. Got a great offensive coordinator, great young defense, full of playmakers. But that's a 5.5, 6-hour plane ride from his.
I think we lost JC. Are you there? I think we lost JC here.
I'll finish for him. I'm listening to the Chris Mathis podcast, and of course, Chris Mathis, he's the producer of the T. Kraz and Ronnie show there at 95.3 WDAE. And he does a great podcast, and I listened to his show last week. He brings it on Tuesday. It was the day after the Bucs lost to the Cowboys last week, and Spencer, his brother, who lives up in Georgia, is just like, oh, Brady's done, this and that, Brady's done. And what Chris Mathis, of course, he's in the room, he's in the stadium, he's up hanging out with guys like J.C. Allen and everyone in the know inside the press box over there. And a lot of them all pretty much come to the conclusion, if Tom Brady's pitching biscuits in 2023, the best place for him to be doing it would be in Tampa Bay. You can look for other ways to get to other places, but at the end of the day, the same personnel, the receivers, the team's going to bend over backwards. You can get a little bit of cap relief space, kick it up the road another year, bring in some more depth on their offensive line, get healthy Ryan Jensen all season. And that's what Chris Mathis, on his Chris Mathis podcast, little shout out for that. Great podcast for not catching it. He said that, he was talking with a lot of the in the knows, mentioning with the Krasnickis and the Pat Donovans and the Aaron Jacobson. And he said that the consensus really is that if Tom's playing in 2023, this is the best situation for him. Now, see if JC's back for us.
Yeah, we're going to try to get him back on the phone lines here. Until then, let's go ahead and read some of these comments. It's the Sports Web on a Tuesday night. I'm your host, Peter Blake, along with Best of the Bay, Mr. Tampa Bay, Ray Kennedy, out and about like always.
Irish 31. Irish 31. They had
31.
Irish 31. Best game.
Okay, and now he's gone. Boy, you got to love technology, don't you, ladies and gentlemen? All right, let's go out to J.C. Allen. We'll get back Ray in a moment. Go ahead and finish your thought here on the Sports Web, my friend.
No, Ray just kind of hit it on the head there. The proximity to his family. He, holds the Glazers in high regards, holds the front office and Todd Bowles in high regards. He knows he's got chemistry with the staff, with the personnel and the players and everything. I just don't see him going somewhere else and having to learn all that over again at age 46. And especially because the NFC South doesn't look like it's going to improve by much. It's still a very winnable division. It's in the NFC, which was kind of up and down this season. The only two teams that kind of really separated themselves were the Eagles and San Francisco. Otherwise, it was kind of wide open. And I think, the Bucs can rebound with this group, with the additions they can, with Tom Brady, with a new offensive coordinator, and still be firmly in the mix for a Super Bowl. So I really don't, looking at the options, I know Miami's thrown out there as a potential. His kids are there, etc. But I just don't think they're going to move on from Mike McDaniels. And Mike McDaniels' offense doesn't really suit an immobile quarterback. So I just don't see the fit anywhere else in the league besides Tampa. Now, he may decide to make it work, but I think realistically it's either Tampa Bay or retirement.
But JC, what do you think the other night when Jim Gray, he's interviewing Tom on his Let's Go podcast, and Jim Gray, who, we've often wondered listening to this podcast all season, Jim always asked.
Well,
Wow.
to what Ray was going to say, Tom Brady said, had some special words to say when asked about his future. It's only been a few. It's going to take it day by day, and if I knew what I was going to eff and do, then don't you think I would have already eff and done it by now? So I think that was scripted. It didn't sound really natural from Brady. It sounded like, if you ever watched him in a few movies, kind
Mm.
of sounds like that. I don't necessarily know if he was, serious or just kind of reacting, but to me, it didn't seem like he was really pissed off about the question. He knew it was coming, and it sounded like it was kind of rehearsed a little bit.
How much of a difficult position are the Bucs in awaiting his decision, if you will? Because Bill O'Brien today went to the New England Patriots. I was under the impression that if you get him, I think you can attract Brady to come back because he's familiar with that system. You don't have to necessarily learn a new system. So, with that being said, how much are the Bucs, going to be how much of a negative impact is it going to be on the Bucs team if they're waiting on Tom Brady?
I don't think Bowles is necessarily hiring an offensive coordinator for Tom Brady. If it would have, matched up with a Bill O'Brien, that would have been ideal, right? Because Brady's familiarity with him, and it's the offense Brady's going to want to run, and they have the same philosophy and ideas because they came through the same thing. They worked well together in the past, but I don't necessarily know if that's the end all be all. And Bowles can't plan for just Brady, potentially year to year. He's got to plan for his job and to have the best guy in the position moving forward that he feels is going to help his staff develop a culture and, put points on the board ultimately. So, it obviously they're going to keep Brady in the loop, I think, with any decision because he has remained, that he needs some time to think about it. So they'll definitely keep him in the loop, but I don't know if a decision is directly based on Brady. And I think Bill O'Brien was always going up to New England. I think it was just thrown out by local media. It didn't seem like there was really any interest made this year besides, the reports that came out that he was potentially in tab to replace Byron. And even then, how credible is that? How 100% sure is that? So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into those as well. But, they've got time, but they don't. There's a bunch of head coach openings, 5 of those, 8 offensive coordinator opens, 13 in total. So they do have to think about making a move here soon. But at the same time, some of these guys who are vying for head coaching roles may find that those opportunities dry up and they're willing to take an OC role like a Frank Wright or like a Jim Caldwell, who hasn't wanted to take one in the past couple of years.
Sure.
I think that's what ultimately Bowles would like to have is a guy who he can just kind of run the offense. You've been a head coach before. You know the duties, especially as an offensive head coach, what you're gonna need to do. It's like having a second head coach on the team. So I think, that's potential avenue that they'll take, but they're interviewing a couple of young guys now too. So, and a couple of guys that, haven't done it at that position, at offensive coordinator position yet. So we'll see.
I want to get into that. We're on with JC Allen of Pewter Report, of course.
Segue.
Yes, sir. Made his start here on the Sports Web. I'm your host, Peter Blake, here on a Tuesday night. Like I was telling my fans out there, I hate Tuesdays, but I felt like we had to go live. I got to ask this question. Will Bill O'Brien going back to New England, do you think there is a possibility of a Brady reunion? You know how things ended.
No.
Can they put that together? Why or why not?
No, I don't think so. You can take the subtle hints that, Brady signed Logan Ryan's football this before they all left the facility. Last pass as a Patriot as soon as, 2 weeks ago. Not even. I mean, you could take little hints like that, but that chapter is closed. I think, Belichick and Brady, they'll always have mutual respect and love for each other, but I don't think that relationship is 100% healed. I don't think that the Pats, they have Mac Jones, who last season had a really good season. This season, not so much. But I mean, that will happen when you have Matt Patricia and Joe Judge calling the plays and the wide receivers cold as ice for the first half of the year. So not to make any excuses, but I think they really like Bailey Zappi too. And I don't think you want to take snaps away from either of those guys especially when he put such a high draft capital into Mac Jones. So I think they're good there. I really think it's just the Bucs or he retires, and I don't even know if he retires straight to Fox. It could be a situation where he just takes some, a couple of years off or focuses on other things and then joins the booth, after a little while. Maybe after maybe Greg Olson moves to Amazon or somewhere like that after one of these guys step down. Maybe he just doesn't do it at all. Maybe he just forms a different role as an ambassador or something that's part of his title anyways. But I don't see a situation where Brady's lacing up another jersey. And I just, like I said, I don't think he's he doesn't need to chase a ring. He's got 7 of them, right? He
Right.
wants to play competitive football, but does he really want to go again somewhere further away from his kids, who at this point are a huge influence in his decision making in his life? And away from familiarity. He knows Tampa, he knows the city, he knows players, he knows the staff. Does he really want to go learn all of that again at age 46, including a new city? All these different things. He might have to find a new place to live regardless, because it looks like his home is on the market for rent at a whopping $60,000 a month.
You can
But
do that. You can afford that, right?
yeah, I can swing it. But we'll it's a waiting game. We're all in that waiting game, Peter, and we won't know until he knows. And I don't think we'll get someone leaking it this time. I think this will be a decision he keeps close to his vest. Probably consults his parents. Probably consults Alex Guerrero, and that's about it.
With that being said, I know the reports would suggest, again, this from Rick Stroud at Tampa Bay Times, saying the Bucs are sold on Todd Bowles. But this was kind of interesting today. I'm just going to paint a picture here. I'm going to ask you what you think. According to ESPN's Diana Rossini, if things don't materialize in terms of an offer for Peyton soon, there is also a team waiting in the wings watching all of this and could make a move if they get their ducks in a row. Now, I've said the Chargers, I think, are definitely should be on the radar. They should have fired Brandon Staley before he got on the tarmac with blowing a 27-0 lead and the decision to play Mike Williams 2 weeks before the playoff game. But knowing the Glazers, do you think there's a possibility that they're not necessarily so sold on a Todd Bowles that maybe they would make a move for Sean Payton, because all the rumors have been put out there that if you get Sean Payton, you may be able to also get a Tom Brady?
Not a chance in hell. Brady likes Bowles, contrary to what everyone might think. Brady is really, Bowles is a very, very smart head coach, very tactical thinker. His defense, when healthy, is one of the best in the league. It didn't look like that this year because key components of it were all injured at certain times, separate times throughout the season. But he likes Bowles. I don't think, would he like to play with Peyton? Yeah. Would he have liked to play with Odell Beckham? Yeah. Would he like to play with, some of these great players around the league? I'm sure. It doesn't happen. It's football. It's not the way things work. Plus, the Bucs need their first round pick. They really can't afford to give up that first round pick for a head coach, and that's around the range that they're looking for. Mid to late first. They can't afford that just for a coach. They need that. They're going to need that to replace a starting position on this roster next season potentially. If Levante doesn't come back, they're going to have to look at a linebacker. If Dean and SMB don't come back, then they might need to be in line for a starting cornerback. If if Brady doesn't come back, maybe they need to use that pick or move up with that pick on a quarterback, or trade down to acquire picks to move around the board to move up for maybe a Hendon Hooker or someone who in the second round coming off injury. I don't know what their plan is there, but they could also need an edge rusher. Shaq is on track to be ready for the the first game of the season in training camp, but at the same time, he's coming off an Achilles tear, which is a serious injury. He's not a speed rusher as it is. He's over the age of 30. How much of that, does he still have that same production, which quite frankly has fallen off quite a few years. Now we still get him pressures, but the sacks aren't there.
Right.
So, you take all these things into consideration. Can they, with those potential 4 needs, and obviously quarterback being the biggest one, afford to trade for a coach? Because Brady might come back to them if they get him. That's not even a given. They could trade that draft pick, get Sean Payton, and then Brady says, I want to retire anyways. So it doesn't make sense. And I just don't see them as a possible choice for Sean Payton. It looks like the Broncos are making a formal offer. I mean, they've got a decent team there. They need some help on the line.
Right.
They've got good weapons in the receiving core when healthy. They got a really solid defense. So, I think that's probably the most likely landing spot. I agree. Staley, I think, should have been fired. That would have been perfect. But they're giving him another year. Mystery team would be interesting. I don't know really who might be
I,
that team that's
I
looking for
throw
him, but
this
he'd have to have a
here.
quarterback.
I throw this out there because if history repeats itself, 3 weeks, nobody, and this was back in 2008 when they decided to fire John Gruden. They waited 3 weeks and out of the blue, and I know the whole story of what happened with Gruden meeting the Glazers. Just you kind of sum it up. They were asking him to basically start over again, go and draft a quarterback. He wanted to go out in free agency. He wanted to spend money. He basically told him to go to hell, and they fired him after 3 weeks after the season. So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, although I trust all the sources that are out there. I trust you. That's why I have you here on the sports web. But I'm just saying, and the more I hear about, you're not rebuilding, you're reloading. I thought that was interesting in itself because JC, if Tom Brady chooses another team, you got a $35 million cap hit. And at the end of the day, it's all about reality. That's not reloading. That's rebuilding. You're going to have to deal with that. You're going to
I disagree with you there.
have to be straight.
I disagree with you just because Mike Greenberg, Jason Light, and Jacqueline Davidson are geniuses when it comes to the cap. They'll move the money around in order to make the necessary pieces. I think when you look at this division, yes, the Bucs will need a new quarterback, but there's several quarterbacks I think, could potentially give them that leap option while they're competing. And maybe it's Kyle Trask, who knows? But I think a guy like Jacoby Brissett can get the job done with good pieces around him under the right offensive coordinator. It's going to start pretty much there. But you look at what they did this offseason too, Brady or not, they knew Brady was year to year. They re-signed all their core guys that were for free agency on 3-year deals. You got Carlton Davis back on a 3-year deal. You got Godwin on a 3-year deal. You got Jensen on a 3-year deal. These guys are set up now. You can get out of them, some of them after the second year, but same thing with Leonard Fournette for everything that he was or was not this season. They re-signed all three of those guys. They just need a quarterback to come in and manage a game. Bowles is going to have his defense ready. I wouldn't be surprised if the first few draft picks are on defense and the first few signings and free agency are on defense over the offense, because the offense is in pretty good shape. I mean, you got 2,000-yard receivers returning. You got a young, promising tight end in Kate Otten, young, promising running back Rachaad White. Your offensive line is what it is at this point. Donovan Smith, does he come back? Do they find another left tackle? That will be a storyline to watch. But you've got Gadecki, Hainsey, and Leverett all competing for that left guard spot next season. You've got Jensen back at center, Shaq at right guard, Tristan at right tackle as things stand right now. That offense, you might need a left tackle and you might need a quarterback. Yeah, those are probably the two most important positions on offense, but they're going to find a way to get it. And that defense is going to be retooled, and it's going, Bowles is going to hope that it plays up to the level that it can be, that hopefully that everybody stays healthy, and that defense should be a top 10 defense in the league under his tutelage and with the right players. And they've got a lot of the right players still there. So I think, a rebuild is you're tearing it down, right? You're taking a tank year. We got this $35 million cap hit, but no, the goal is always the same, is to go win a Super Bowl. And again, if they can just punch the NFC South, they've got a ticket to the dance. Teams get hot. We saw that with with the Giants. We've seen that with the Bengals, who struggled 7 straight games. They haven't lost in quite a while, and they're making a bid to go to the Super Bowl after looking, underwhelming. That Super Bowl
About
hangover.
to win the Super Bowl. That's what you
Right.
should be saying. The way that team is playing
Hey.
now, I'm telling you, they're a scary team in the National Football League. We're on with JC Allen of Pewter Report here on the Sports Web. Got to read this comment here from John Mamula from 95.3, of course, WDAE. Let's be honest, guys. No one will accept the OC job till they know who the quarterback is going to be. That position and who's playing, it leads directly to the chances of any success in Tampa Bay. And for whomever accepts this position, I mean, is he somewhat right? It does come down to who's going to be your quarterback. And the Bucs right now are kind of waiting on this Brady decision unless they already know. And that's another report that came out this weekend saying that players don't, the unnamed player or unnamed players believe that it's, Tom Brady will not return, that he's done with Tampa Bay. What do you make of that?
I've talked to a few players. They didn't really get that sense. They think that he's just going to take some time, and they realize his age, and they realize how long he's been playing and how important some of the off-field opportunities and spending time with his family is. But at the same time, this is a guy who has those competitive juices going. They've got those competitive juices flowing. Again, I would not be surprised if he retired. Let me state that. Um, yeah, he has always stated he wanted to play to 45. He did it. It wasn't the way he wanted to go out, but spending some time away might really kind of say, hey, it's time for me to walk away from this game. And we'll obviously we'll find that out probably before free agency starts, sometime before then. But I just think that if he's playing, it's in Tampa. Whether his reports are coming out about him, maybe not want to come back, saying goodbye to the media in the last game. I just don't see him playing anywhere else. But retirement's an option. But I just can't put it in my mind a better situation for him than Tampa Bay right now.
I agree. I completely agree. You still have the outside targets. You have to fix the offensive line. The Bucs have been good to you. They rolled out the red carpet. I don't believe in all this friction stuff, although I think there was something with BA. No matter what, whatever. Let's move on to the offensive coordinator candidates here. Jim Bob Cooter. I know it's a funny name, but what he did with the Lions a couple of years ago and also with the Jacksonville Jaguars helped Trevor Lawrence. Jacksonville ranks 10th in passing offense, according to Jeremy Fowler. Is this a move that you like? Keenan McCardell has been also mentioned. They're going to be interviewing him. And also Clint Kubiak. Go ahead and break down these candidates a little bit. Get these fans a little bit excited about some of them because they're kind of down. They want the big name. But let's start with Jim Bob Cooter. What's he bring to the table for this Tampa Bay Buccaneer team, in your opinion?
Yeah, Jim Bob Cooter worked, obviously, with Matt Stafford with the Lions. Through the 2015 to 2019 season. The offense wasn't historic with them. They had some good seasons, but really it averaged out to about 17 points a game when you look at the different seasons he had with the Lions as their offensive coordinator. I'll get it right here. The Lions offenses 2015 to 2018 ranked 18th, 20th, 7th, and 25th in points. Averaged about the 17, so below average. Made the playoffs one year, 9-7 another. So I mean, it's not like he set the world on fire up there in Detroit. But you like what he's done with Trevor Lawrence, obviously getting them, as you mentioned, 10th in the league in passing, 232.9 yards per game. They're also 10th in the league in scoring as well with 23.8, and that ultimately that's the stat that matters. A lot of that is going to come from Cooter's, experience as an OC and as a passing game coordinator. But it's one of those things where it's not the hot name candidate. Would I be overwhelmed with joy if this was the candidate if I was a Bucs fan? I don't think so. But there's potentially worse options and that you could bring in. I mean, you just had Byron Leftwich, so anything's got to be better than that.
Well, yeah, of course. At the end of the day, there's a reason why Byron Leftwich was fired, because your offense couldn't score 20 points a game with all those weapons. You had 18 points. You struggled in the red zone. And you ran the ball on first down way too much. We're on with, again, J.C. Allen up here to report. How about Vikings receiver coach Keenan McCardell, who a lot of Bucs fans will be familiar with, Super Bowl champion, great wide receiver, very talented, doing some big things there with the Vikings. Explosive offense. Do you like that move? He's never called offensive plays before, but is this kind of where the NFL and their direction is going at this point?
Yeah, I think this is, for the offense, you want more creative minds more than, experience certainly helps. And, I think that was one of the things that really hamstrung and handcuffed Byron Leftwich this past season rather, was lack of experience in any other system but the Bruce Arians system. Lack of, okay, well, this isn't working. What did we try when we were in this and I was in this coaching staff.
Right.
Now McCardell doesn't have much of that, but he does have some experience with different head coaches. Remember he was with Mike Zimmer, and then this past season Kevin O'Connell. So he's got at least a couple different systems that he's been in. He was also with Washington for a minute and the Jaguars as well. So he's got different he's been in different situations at different times that he can look back on and utilize his experience. He also coached Stephon Diggs at Maryland too.
Right.
So,
which is not bad. That's a pretty good resume at the end of the day, JC. Let's talk about the other candidate here, Clint Kubiak. Relation to who I'm thinking, Gary Kubiak?
Yeah, it's his son. So it's his oldest son. So obviously in that Kubiak system, it's had some NFL. It's had some, good success in the NFL in past seasons. He's done a bunch of different things. Quarterbacks coach with the Broncos when his dad was there. Then when his dad went to the Vikings, he followed them there. Was in the same role as quarterbacks coach. Replaced his dad in offensive coordinators in 2021 when he retired. And then Kevin O'Connell became the head coach. So Kubiak was out displaced again. So then he moved back to Denver as the quarterbacks coach and the passing game coordinator under Nathaniel Hackett. Now, obviously, obviously a lot of scenarios led to the Broncos' ineptitude to move the ball. A lot of it was Russell Wilson, but that. Good family, good system, good tree. But again, underwhelming results last year make you kind of question. Smart football mind though. Again, young guy. It's one of those situations where all three of these guys are under the age of 40. So they're all younger coaches in their career, which is again, I think that ideally he's looking for a guy with head coaching experience, but I could be wrong. But all three I think are just underwhelming candidates. Obviously, as we mentioned, McCardell never called offensive plays. Great history as a receivers coach and working with some of the best receivers in the game. Jim Bob Cooter was average at best at offensive coordinator with the Lions, and I know it's the Lions. There's a better staff potentially here, especially if Brady comes back with weapons, etc. But I don't, I don't think any of these coordinators right now that are scheduled for interviews are kind of put you over the edge situation. But I could be wrong.
You could be wrong, and I definitely could be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times here on this show. Todd Monken. Everybody wants to get him back. 2 straight national championships. Would he leave Georgia for an opportunity to just be an offensive coordinator? And I'm kind of thinking about it. Like, Todd Monken feels like he has a chance to be a head coach in the National Football League. Why would he take a job with the Bucs as an offensive coordinator? Of course, there's always that opportunity that if Todd Bowles doesn't necessarily get it done, maybe the Glazers hand him the coaching job at the end of the day. I don't want to think that ahead. I'm just going back into history. But Todd Monken and Frank Reich, where did the Bucs stand on those two candidates?
As of right now, Frank Reich is firmly in head coaching interview mode right now. There could be a situation where he decides that he wants to take an offensive coordinator role. But really, it's, it comes down to, does he want to move into an OC role, or is he going to take time off like Jim Caldwell did? Jim Caldwell interviewed for head coaching jobs only last year, didn't get any, and was content with sitting out a year and coming back, having his name back in the cycle. Remember, Frank Reich was fired midseason by the Colts. So,
sure.
Obviously it wasn't 100% his fault. I mean, look who they gave him to work with. Collapses Jonathan Taylor, the offensive line regressed, and obviously the quarterback position was a nightmare. But, he might decide that instead of jumping into an OC role and signing a contract for 3-4 years, that he might want to just sit out for the year and put his name back in the ring next year. So as far as Todd Monken so far, nothing to report on that front. I don't think the Bucs have reached out, according to a couple sources. So, I think it's something the fans would love, but I don't know how receptive he is to coming back as an OC. Maybe he wants to wait for his name to start popping up in head coaching gigs, and rather take that if he's going to move from college back to the pros. But we'll kind of see how that comes about. If I, for me personally, I'd like them to look at names like Brian Johnson, quarterbacks coach with the Eagles, Zach Robinson, who's over with the Rams. There's a few other guys I like out there. I like Reich. I like Caldwell. If those guys, decide that they're gonna be available, Joe Brady up in Buffalo. I like him as well as a good young mind. I think good fit for the offense. Get them vertical. Utilize the running game. Utilize play action. Utilize motion and different situations, and kind of just put the players in positions to make plays instead of saying go out there and just beat your guy. But they're gonna do an extensive search. It's gonna be more than just these three guys, and they'll make a decision, and then Brady will make a decision, based off a bunch of different items, and that will be one of them that's included in it.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think Johnson is definitely an interesting candidate because he's worked with Kyle Trask. A lot of people keep on asking Trask, if you get away from Brady, Brady decides to retire, goes to another team, do you think the Bucs would go out and get a bridge quarterback? Or in your opinion, did they let it ride with Trask? Did they try to go and see what they have? Because at the end of the day, JC, he's a second round pick. He's never gotten an opportunity to start a game or games. You don't know what you have. It's kind of a waste of a pick. Where does this Buccaneer organization lie on Trask?
Well, I firmly believe that you should always be developing quarterbacks. Even with the Patriots, look at what they did when they had Brady. Taking Jimmy Garoppolo in round 2, Ryan Mallett round 4. Kevin O'Connell they took Matt Castle, they took Cliff Kingsbury. They always were drafting quarterback. Jacoby Brissett's another good name.
Sure.
Always draft Brian Hoyer. They got an undrafted free agent. They were always developing quarterbacks at all times, and I think that's something that you need to do. And sometimes if the best player on your board is a quarterback in the second round, and you need someone to kind of develop, then that's who you take. And I think a lot of fans kind of overblow those things. I think if you look at Kyle Trask, if he came out a year later, he'd be one of the best quarterbacks in that draft, I think. So, in a very underwhelming draft, it looks like Justin Fields is going to be the best of the bunch. Zach Wilson is probably going to be out with the Jets. Trey Lance is getting beat out by Mr. Irrelevant. And Mac Jones has had up and down and ineffective times, Again, last year was just an abomination. What is Matt Patricia doing with a pencil in his ear calling plays?
Well,
Anyways.
exactly. I'm trying to tell myself the same thing. I don't know what you're doing. He has no offensive coordinator experience at all. He has no business being the offensive coordinator. And you just wonder why your offense is struggling because you put a defensive coordinator into an offensive coordinator position. It doesn't work out.
Right. But as far as Kyle Trask, I think they like him. There's no doubt that they don't like the quarterback. They don't like the prospect. But I definitely think that he's not given the keys to the job. I don't necessarily know if Blaine Gabbert's going to be back. I'm not sure if Ryan Griffin's going to be back. Those are two question marks. I think Brady will. I don't think Gabbert's back. I think they move on from him. And then, you bring in a guy like Jacoby Brissett. You bring in a guy like Taylor Heineke, who's had some starting experience and success in the NFL, who's kept teams afloat and who are going to be good mentors to a younger guy and, show him different, different things that they've learned along the way. So I definitely think if Brady doesn't come back, that's in the cards. I also don't rule out them potentially trading up for a quarterback or grabbing a quarterback, trading up in the second round, grabbing a quarterback, in the first round if they have a guy rated high enough. Definitely taking a quarterback at some point this draft. Even if it's the later rounds, especially if they get the fifth and seventh compensatory pick, or they move around in the draft and pick up more picks. It's just beneficial. Again, always develop quarterbacks no matter what you're doing. You should always have a developmental guy on the roster. But we'll see. You mentioned it. He's never had a time to start. He's never had time with his first string ever. He's been thrown to scrubs. Most of his game time even in preseason. So
right.
We don't know what he can do.
You don't know what he can do. I'm not ready to rule him out, but I would say that he's not been able to beat out Blaine Gabbert. Whether that means, I don't know what it means at the end of the day. And the comments coming out of the organization the last couple of years.
I can sum that up real quick.
Go ahead.
Brady loves Gabbert. Gabbert, helped him immensely when he first came to Tampa, learning the system in that COVID year. He's one of the closest guys on the team. And if Trask beats him out for that second job, quote unquote, now instead of Trask being inactive every game, Gabbert's inactive every game. And Brady doesn't have that guy he goes to on the sideline to vent. He doesn't have that guy who can say, hey, on this thing, you saw this. Hey, what did you, watching these, and bounce those ideas off, bounce those, plays off, looking, all that stuff. He's not going to do it with Trask because Trask doesn't know what he's looking at. Trask hasn't been in all these different situations like Gabbert has. He's not a veteran of the system. He's not a veteran of the league. That's pretty much why Trask was number 3 on the depth chart, because it was more beneficial to have Gabbert there for Brady, and because he's a veteran and he's played and you've got a veteran team, than it was to have Trask out there. It had nothing to do with Trask's development. It had nothing to do, I think Trask has developed. This is his plan: backup in high school, backup in Florida, and then he finally got the chance to start. Whether that happens, I don't know, but I think the Bucs aren't going to, give him an opportunity if Brady walks away. I don't think there's any big name quarterbacks. Please stay away from Derek Carr.
What do you have against Derek Carr? I mean,
can't handle the pressure. Can't handle the stress. Josh McDaniels came in and did the Patriot way.
Okay.
The same way Belichick did to Brady, calling him out, holding him accountable, holding him to a higher standard than the rest of the team. And, Derek Carr, according to reports, I should say, Derek Carr was like, oh, he's being mean to me. Why doesn't he like me? The relationship. He's like, he's always picking on me type deal. I just don't want that thin skin around my football team that I cover, a football team that I root for. That's just, if you can't handle constructive criticism from your coach, especially, with your peers, especially knowing where he came from, then I don't. I mean, what else, and you're just kind of mentally unfocused and lost and broken down from this man's words. Like I don't want that quarterback near anything that I'm associated with.
Makes lots of sense. JC Allen up, Pewter Report. Thanks a lot for your time. Go ahead and promote yourself here on the Evolution.
Sure. You guys can follow me on Twitter at JCAllenNFL. Follow my work at pewterreport.com. Follow us at Pewter Report on Twitter and on Facebook, and definitely check out our podcast at Pewter Report TV on YouTube. Peter, as always, it's a blast coming on here. We always say we're going to do this amount of time, and we always go over it because the conversation just flows. So appreciate you for having me on, man, and we'll definitely do this soon.
Yeah, man, you're definitely the man. You're doing big things over there with Pewter Report. Very proud of you. And like I said, I always brag about this. He started out on the Evolution, and he's on the Evolution. Thanks a lot for your time, my friend. All right?
Absolutely.
All right, good stuff there. JC Allen up, Pewter Report. Let's go back out to the comments. Open phone lines. I guess you don't like Tuesdays either, huh? 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. Again, 727-409-7528. It's 727-409-7528. This segment is brought to you by Spring Hill Trailer and Equipment Repairs. For all your equipment repair needs, call 985-570-7269. Again, 985-570-7269. And, of course, if you're wagering on the National Football League, of course, playoffs playoffs, a championship, of course. You've got KC versus the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday and the San Francisco 49ers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Go to uwager.lv, put in the promo code SportsWeb. If you're going to wager, definitely put that in there. 80% bonuses, amazing stuff going on with uwager.lv.com. So let's go back out to these comments here. Mike says, I can't see Brady going to San Francisco since they have a rapport with Brock Purdy. And of course, they also have Trey Lance, which they gave up 3 first-round picks. It doesn't make sense. I get it. Everybody's saying, well, that's where he's from. Well, maybe you're a better team with Tom Brady. You don't know. You know, Father Time is undefeated, 25-9. That's where Tom Brady is right now. That's where he's at. Now, is that the offensive line? Is that the skill positions not being good enough? I mean, at the end of the day, you have to also say that it was a lot of the offense's deficiencies, if you will, was on Brady. And whether he had a hand in calling the plays or not, I'm saddling with it. He did. He had some of that. And he definitely missed throws all year long, whether he had pressure in his face or not. We saw it. Again, the biggest mystery for me is how can you not connect with Mike Evans when the 2 following years you're able to do it? You're able to get it done, and you can't do it this year. We saw in one game against the Carolina Panthers. Where were the rest of the games? What was going on there? Of course it was the offensive line. We've said it over and over and over again. My co-host, Harry, the Greek professional handicapper extraordinaire, 1252 Chicago Sports, is like a broken record. Like beating a dead horse about the offensive line. It's one of the most important units in football. You win and lose in the trenches. And of course, the Bucs lost. Why? You're giving up pressure. You're giving up sacks. You're getting in Brady's face. Could that have caused some of the timing? I know one thing. I'm tired of a 2-yard screen not going anywhere. I'm tired of throwing to the running back all the time. I want to see those plays down the field. So if you decide to bring him back or Brady decides to come back, you better have an offensive line that's going to be able to block in front of him. You got to give him enough time. You also got to be more creative. You got to run the ball more. You can't throw the ball 66 times and expect to win. I go back to the Cowboy game. You can't do it. Do I see him going to San Francisco? I don't know why you would, besides the fact that you have a defense in place there, right? Let's go out to Ben Cornett from Las Vegas. Welcome, Ben. You're on the Evolution. What do you have to say, my friend?
First of all, how are you doing tonight, Peter?
I'm doing great, man. I'm coming here on a Tuesday night. I don't necessarily have the best luck with Tuesday night, and sure enough, we have all kinds of tech issues with JC and, of course, Ray Kennedy. So there you go. But I love coming here and talking to you about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I felt like it was my job to do that with all the stories that are happening today, all the reports. So you tell me how you're doing. What do you think about all these reports coming out from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN saying there's a chance, Dumb and Dumber reference there. I think there's more of a 1 in a million chance for Brady to come back. And then you hear rumors of Bucs players, the unnamed players, think he's not going to come back. Will he stay? Will he go? It's kind of an Aaron Rodgers drama here going on in Tampa Bay. Guys being let go, offensive coordinator candidates being interviewed. I mean, so much stuff going on in this offseason already.
Yeah, I'm surprised we don't have any more news than that.
Right?
No, I'm kidding. There's so much stuff. Yeah. Look, again, it's off season. You're always going to get speculation, especially when with Tom Brady. Anytime, you have Tom Brady, he's the most popular guy in the NFL.
Sure.
So there's always going to be speculation, is this it? Is he going to another team? Blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But I don't know, Peter. Let's just enjoy the ride. I mean, he's got to really, look what happened last year. He retired, but then he unretired.
Right.
We just don't know. We just don't know.
You don't know, and you're trying to put the pieces together. And, of course, he's asked by Jim Gray last night. And again, whether it's theater or not, he was pretty upset about it. And I get it. He's been probably asked He's probably been asked by so many people about this, and Tampa Bay media hasn't been able to really ask him, but they've kind of tried to ask as many questions about it. There's other talking heads out there that are asking about it. He's probably tired of it. He probably doesn't know himself.
Yeah, I mean, who know? The guy just went through a divorce, right?
Mm-hmm.
He played through a rough season. Now, I'm not excusing Brady. He did not play his best football this year, and like you said, he didn't. I don't think he realized Mike Evans was on the team until the
Carolina
game,
right?
It's
amazing to me because here's one of the most talented wide receivers in the league, and somehow during games you forget about him. It goes back to the Raiders and Josh McDaniels and the bang-up coaching job he did there. Devontae Adams gets the ball, 9 targets in the first half, and then all of a sudden you forget about him. I get it. Defensive coaches are going to adjust to that, but you got to find a way as an offensive play caller to get your playmakers the ball as much as possible, because that's what makes the offense go.
Well, I understand that, Peter, but how tall is Mike Evans? He's 6'5", 6'6",
right? 6'5", 6'6", yes.
Wouldn't you try to get him the ball more to draw flags? Perhaps?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, pass interference. Absolutely. And this Bucs unit was good at doing that last year. Their wide receivers, they could have done it more. You're exactly right. They could have. I guess it comes down to the pressure getting into Brady's face and him not wanting to be hit and getting rid of the ball 2.5 seconds or some crazy number at the end of the day. I get it. He's 45 years old. When I get up, I'm 45 years old. I don't want to get hit by anybody. Hell, I don't want to even get up sometimes, especially on a Tuesday morning. But I got up this morning, and even, I have my own fair share of pains and everything like that. But that's Tom Brady. How many hits has he had during his long, illustrious career? A long time. So, of course.
Too many to count. Yeah.
Right.
And again, he chose to come back. And that's the
thing.
It. I mean,
that's it.
I love Brady, and I always think of Brady. If this is the last hurrah, then I appreciate it, man. Respect. But, you got to want to take those hits. You got to let plays develop. He didn't want to do that. Now I get it. The offensive line was banged up. You had to play, musical chairs with it. But at the same time, it's still a violent game. It's going to happen. And as good of he has a great release time on the football. I would think that, okay, stand in the pocket every once in a while. Just take those hits. Yeah, they're going to hurt. Yeah, you're going to have to go in the ice tub after the game or the next morning. You're not. But he's in great shape. So I don't understand.
It's going to make all the difference in the world, right? Because you see quarterbacks scale the pocket. We've seen it, and I get it. They're younger options. You have Patrick Mahomes who does it. I don't know how much he's going to do it on Sunday versus the Cincinnati Bengals. You have Josh Allen that does it. You have Joe Burrow. When you step up in that pocket, you step into that throw, it makes all the difference in the world. We didn't see that. We didn't see those 20-yard plays down the field, whether it was offensive line, play calling, guys not getting separation. There's a multitude, Leo word, of things that could have happened during last season.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot more to that than this, Peter. It just looked like Tom just wasn't 100% focused.
Right.
You know how he's just lives and breathes
laser focused.
365.
Yes. Correct.
I didn't see that 100% this year.
Sure.
I just didn't. Whether it was the offensive line, whether it was, his off the field issues, whether it was having that, Byron not having that voice, that Bruce Arians voice to say, okay, here's what you did wrong. We're going to get this right. Tom, why'd you throw that ball?
Correct.
Tom, why'd you do this?
Correct.
And I'm with you. I've always said I mentioned it to you that I don't think he wanted Arians back. He didn't want that, red pen, so to speak, and he wanted his own offense with Byron.
It's good to have that red pen sometimes. It's good for people to challenge you. You know, I like when callers challenge me. You've challenged me before. We go back and forth. Yeah, it's entertaining. It's not always great for somebody to just agree with you all the time. And I think what brings the best out of Tom Brady is that friction, is that challenge from a BA, from a Bill Belichick, who we heard the reason why he left New England in the first place is because he felt disrespected and was too buttoned up. And now you hear from Colin Cowherd and other sports talk show hosts out there that it's not buttoned up enough. Well, which is it? Is it too buttoned up in New England? So now you want to go to Tampa and it's lax and you love it and now you're not winning. So now it's not buttoned up enough. I don't know what the answer to that is. I tell you right now, it's very frustrating to hear some of these reports about how the Buccaneer organization didn't do enough. I completely disagree. They've done everything they can for Tom Brady. They have rolled out the red carpet. They have gave him player personnel decisions. If he wanted Antonio Brown, they went after him. Even though BA didn't want it, they went after him. If they wanted Rob Gronkowski, they went after him. If they wanted Leonard Fournette, they went after him. If they wanted Julio Jones, they went after him. If they wanted Kyle Rudolph, they went after him. They've done everything in their power to make this man happy. So anybody saying out there, this Buccaneer organization hasn't done enough, I don't know what you're smoking, because they have done everything in their power to make him happy. And if he's not happy, then he's never going to be happy.
Well, let's not forget Mr. Mike Evans, who kept, taking, money out of his, contract.
Right. Restructuring.
Free up some money, restructuring.
Guy's a legend. He's a legend in Tampa Bay Buccaneer history.
Absolutely. Legend. So you're 100% on the mark, Peter. They did everything for him. We accommodated. And again, we thank Tom. He turned our culture around.
Sure.
But you also have to thank Jason Light. You also have to thank Bruce Arians.
Of course.
You also have to thank Greenberg and Mike Evans for doing the things to get the stuff that the players, I should say, Brady needs to make this team a championship team every single year. And I'm going to say this real quick.
Yeah.
If this is the last hurrah for Tom Brady, he's not back. I made a comment. I don't know if you read it yet, but our division is not, if with a different quarterback, even with Trask, it's not out of the realm of possibility we can still win this division next year, because the other three teams, Peter, are either rebuilding or they're in the middle of a rebuild. You don't know what's going on with the Saints. You don't know their quarterback situation.
It's a good point.
Carolina's, doesn't have a coach yet. Atlanta, I could see already that Arthur Smith, I think he's on the hot seat.
Yeah.
This is going to be his third year, and he's already traded Matt Ryan. Desmond Ridder, you just don't know what you have in them. They're not really taking those next steps. So, Peter, I think we're in better shape than people realize with or without Brady, at least next year.
It's certainly possible. You're bringing up some great points. I just kind of wonder how many defensive players you're going to lose in free agency, how many players on offense, because, again, if Brady decides to go elsewhere, retiring is one thing. You can spread it out. You can do that. That's been talked about. You could spread it out where you go $12 million and you're able to spend. But if he chooses another team, then it's a $35 million cap hit. And at that juncture, I feel like you're going to have to do, some amazing work. And I'm not saying they can't. I think they can. But at the end of the day, are you going to get a quarterback as good as Tom Brady? Most likely not. I don't see it happening. But you're right. They could get a bridge quarterback. They could still be in it. But there's a lot of salary cap, a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made. You're going to have to do a bang-up job in the draft. And it just hasn't happened here in the last couple of years. Good stuff, Ben. Anything else here on the evolution?
Yeah. Well, are you ready? I know it's off subject, but are you ready for Saturday night? Royal Rumble weekend?
It's my favorite pay-per-view event. I'm not going to be on tomorrow night unless there is some breaking news, but I love that event. It's my favorite wrestling pay-per-view of the year. I think that Cody Rhodes is definitely going to win it. He is the perfect guy to win it at the end of the day. The storyline is there. He got hurt. You have to have him against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. If you want Roman Reigns to exit the way to Hollywood, Cody Rhodes is the perfect person, the perfect wrestler to put the belt on, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, look at the vignettes they've already put out there. I mean, he's just a natural baby face, and people want to get behind this guy. So,
of course,
it's going to be great. I can't wait. That's who I would pick too, Peter. That's who I would pick too.
All right. Good stuff, Ben. I'm go ahead and give you this.
How about them Bucs, baby?
Use that second call if you like to. Thanks a lot for calling in on the evolution of sports talk television, the Sports Web. All right.
All right. Take care, Peter. Have a good night.
All right. Good stuff there. Ben Cornett from Las Vegas. Open phone line if you want to get in on the action. 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. Let's get this guy on. He's patiently waiting. Mr. Jason Powers, Powers on Sports podcast, No Quarter Given podcast on the buckpower.com network. I got to come out to you. Let's go back to the Cowboy game. How disappointed were you by that result? And were you really surprised of how that offense struggled against the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago? Welcome to the Evolution.
Peter Blake, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, buddy. How you doing? I decided to go live on Tuesday night, Jason Powers. And I told you, I hate Tuesdays. And you know what? I'm glad I did go live because I had a good day on the phone today, and I'm having a good night tonight. So let's go back to the Bucs loss there against the Cowboys. Give me your thoughts.
They were just all the concerns we've had for 17 weeks finally came to a culmination in week 18. I mean, we all thought we could just flip the switch. And by the way, I apologize about my hair. My hair is a disaster tonight. I need to throw a hat on.
But bro, you look fine. You look great, man. You're a superstar on the sports web. Come on now.
I apologize.
Listen, let me just come on to this guy right now. You know what he did? You know what he got me for Christmas? And I feel bad because I didn't get him anything for Christmas, and I got to get him for something for Christmas. He got me a self high five DDP wrestling shirt, which, by the way, that's the key to my heart. That's awesome. That's my tag team partner of the world. So your hair looks great, man. You're styling, you're profiling. Woo! Continue on.
And speaking of that,
yes.
Did you see who's going to be the Grand Marshal of Gasparilla this weekend? Woo! There you go, baby.
I've never been to a Gasparilla. I got to get out more. And this may be the year I go. I mean, what do you think about that event in itself? Ric Flair, the dirtiest player in the game.
He will play that up as much as you can play that up, riding on that float along Bayshore and during downtown Tampa. He will be a rock star on Saturday during that parade, brother.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. So, I mean, again, 66 times, you run the ball 12 times. Yeah. Did it seem like when you watched that press conference that Tom Brady was done, or was he just saying, goodbye? You're not sure at the end of the day, because it certainly seemed like he was saying goodbye, not only to the media, but also to Bucs fans with his comments at the end of it.
I mean, obviously, I know we've heard speculation all throughout the year that if Tom did play next year, if he does play, he's not decided. I don't think he really knows yet. I think ultimately he's going to play, but the question's going to be, is Tampa going to be a viable option for him to come back to? I still think, I know lots of people don't think that Tampa is a viable option. I still think Tampa is a viable option for Tom. One, because they did make the quick change with the offensive staff. And two, like I've told you for many, many weeks, I don't think Tom's going to want to be on the West Coast so far away from his kids. I think that's going to be a big factor in this decision. Again, he'll have some options, potentially Miami, depending on what they decide to do with Tua, even though the ownership has said they're going to keep Tua. I don't think Tua and Tom will be on the same team together, so they'll either trade Tua, or if Tom comes, Tua won't be on that roster. So I still think Tampa's a very viable option for Tom. I think the coach, the administration, front office, Jason Light, Todd Bowles, has probably made them some commitments that, hey, Tom, if you come back, we'll do this, and this with the roster, as far as especially offensive line, get some speed on the roster, whether it's through the draft or free agency. But I think Tom's still a viable option here in Tampa.
Do you think one of those options was to fire a Byron Leftwich? Were you surprised by that? Because we heard the rumors circulating, and you can't go from scoring 30 points a game and having all this success in the red zone to only scoring 18. Somebody had to, basically
bite the bullet, take the hit.
Yeah, deal with the consequences. So Byron Leftwich being fired, how surprised were you by that? And do you think that helps their case to keep a Tom Brady in 2023, Jason?
It probably does. I mean, but again, am I gonna blame Byron for all the ills of the offense in 2022? No. I think it was a combination of play calling, Tom not playing as well, a lack of speed on offense. I think people don't want to admit that, but we just don't have we don't have much speed on offense. No offense to Mike Evans and Godwin, but they're not burners. They're not what they were 2 or 3 years ago from a speed perspective. And he was a little handcuffed. And again, he didn't call the best games in the world. I don't think the creativity was exceptional offensively during the year. I think they were predictable formations. They came out in 3 wides. They didn't do a lot of motion. They didn't do a lot of shifting, things like that you see other offenses that are still playing are doing. Again, this is part of that Tom Brady's preference. Well, who knows? But I think, Yeah, I think that was just a natural separation when the offense drops off as much as it did. Somebody was going to take the fall. And here's the other thing: I think Todd Bowles wanted to get away from everything being Bruce Arians centric. He obviously he's very tight to Bruce, but obviously I'm sure he has some philosophical things that he wanted to probably do a little bit different than maybe Byron, who's a Bruce Arians guy. I think part of this whole coaching staff cleanup was Todd Bowles wants to have some say in his own guys. Because remember, Buck fans, Todd was hired late in the process, late March. He didn't have a chance to make coaching changes last year if he wanted to. It was too late to do that. So he was kind of stuck with all Bruce's guys. And I think it's a freshness to the building is going to come with a new offensive staff.
Speculate for me, because I know you hate that word. Chances that Tom Brady comes back, because it is the best situation. I talked about this. I feel like the organization has done everything they can. They've given him decision-making, whether it was playbook, personnel. In your opinion, is this the best situation for Tom Brady to come back to, even though right now you're not sure about the cap and everything like that?
Well, again, I think it is. I think offensively, they're going to make some upgrades, whether it's both offensive line and speed on offense, because, I mean, it's clear they need some speed, whether it's at running back or at the wide receiver position, and there'll be some opportunities in the draft to do that. There's plenty of fast guys at wide receiver in the first couple of rounds. There's a couple of really kind of knifing, kind of scat back kind of running backs that I think will be there in the first couple of rounds if you want to go that way. And I think offensive line is the one place that I won't say it's easiest to make upgrades, but there are guys out there. You can make trades for guys. You can make a trade for a guard. Jensen's going to be back. The question I think you have to answer on the offensive line is, what do you do with Donovan Smith? Do you bring him back? Do you, again, something I've talked to you about over the last year or so, do you transition Tristan Wirfs from right tackle to left tackle potentially? Where again, if you're going to pay him $20 million, which you're going to have to pay Tristan that amount, would you rather him be playing left tackle or right tackle? To me, I'd rather him play left tackle if he's going to be your franchise guy on the offensive line. So decisions to be made with Donovan Smith, but I think the offensive line can be revamped quickly as long as you make some good, wise investments.
We're on with Jason Powers, Powers on Sports Podcasts. And, of course, if you love Bucs podcasts out there, and we know Uncle TJ Reeves does a great job, phenomenal job with his Bucs podcast with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, of course, no quarter given. Go ahead and explain it out there to all the Bucs fans who don't know about this great podcast and what we do.
So what we do during the regular season, we break down the previous opponent and we preview that week's opponent in depth. We talk about matchups, all that good stuff. What we will do now in the off season, we're gonna be recording a podcast this week, breaking down just a review of the season, the regular season. We're gonna give you some speculation on the OC. We're gonna talk OC hires, staff hires. Who do we think would be a good fit to be the OC? We're gonna preview the free agency. There's a lot of. I've got a list right here I'm looking at. There's like 25 free agents on the Buccaneer roster. There has to be some decisions made, and
Right.
they have some salary cap issues as well. They're like $50 million over the salary cap right now. And granted, some of these dollars will be gotten rid of when you don't re-sign guys, but you're still in a situation where you got to be creative if you're the Buccaneers. If you decide you want to go for it again, now if you decide you want to break it down and clean house a little bit, then you can get rid of some of that salary cap stuff pretty easily. But if you decide you want to be in the quarterback business, Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers potentially, if Brady comes back, then you have to be very creative with the salary cap. And that's what we'll talk about here in the offseason. We'll do a pre-draft episode as well. We'll do some free agency episodes as well. So we're going to keep you in the loop throughout the offseason with the No Quarter Given podcast. And as you know, you're going to be a big part of that as well.
Of course. And we also talk about the history of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with none other than our boss, Mr. Paul Stewart, who is an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if you are not tuning in to the sports web, you're not tuning in or listening to No Quarter Given on the buckpower.com podcast network, then what are you tuning into? And also open phone line 727-255-0391. It's 727-255-0391. We also got a new number in case you can't get in. 727-409-7528. It's 727-409-7528.
Let me ask you something.
Yes.
What did you think of the names you heard today that kind of got leaked out a little bit? Some of these OC names. Keenan McCardell, Clint Kubiak from Denver, son of Gary Kubiak.
Mm-hmm.
The Coot, Jim Bob Cooter, who used to be in Detroit with Matthew Stafford. He actually did a pretty decent job in Detroit.
Right.
When he was there as the OC with him and Calvin Johnson and such. What'd you think of those names? What kind of name are you looking for? I mean, I want a guy who's done it before. I don't want a fresh guy who's never called plays before.
Right.
If you're Todd Bowles, you can't afford that, in my opinion. You can't afford to have a transition year where a guy has never done it before. To me, you better hire somebody that's called plays before in the National Football League.
Well, I can tell you who I wanted, Jason Powers. I wanted Bill O'Brien, but he got hired this morning, so that's how the Tuesday started out. That's why I say I hate Tuesdays, and I feel like that would have been the best candidate at the end of the day because he's familiar with Tom Brady. He's ran that offense. You may be able to attract him. I still think the Bucs are in a good situation. They just have to figure this out. Jim Bob Cooter, I mean, is Enos and, Boss Hogg from the Dukes of Hazzard. I mean, seriously.
He actually did like I said, he did a pretty decent job.
Jacksonville. Right. I mean, 10th, he definitely helped out with the development of a Trevor Lawrence. So I like the move. I mean, Keenan McCardell, of course, Super Bowl 37 winner, wide receiver, big-time free agent that John Gruden got, and then eventually screwed over because he didn't give him a new contract that's neither here nor there. And, of course, the Bucs traded him.
He was old. He was at the end of the road. I don't have a problem with what Gruden did. He was at the end of the road.
Well, it's just the way you do things because it's like you get Keenan McCardell, you promise him a contract extension. I get it.
Did he?
I trust Keenan because you hear the stories from previous players, and I really never hear anything good about John Gruden. It just seems like it's more of a backstabber.
Speaking of that,
yes,
I'm shocked. I'm still waiting for this big bombshell interview that Gruden has one of these days. We've still not heard any kind of sit-down interview with Gruden, kind of going over, his situation and all that, and kind of asking for repentance, repenting and trying to get back in the good graces of some of these teams. I just wonder when that's going to happen. Is at some point this offseason that happens?
Right.
What do you think? I mean, I'm waiting for that 60 minutes interview with John Gruden.
I don't see it happening. I really don't. And I don't see him getting another job with the National Football League. And I think that's the reason why he wasn't considered for college football, because at the end of the day, we're living in a PR. Well, I'll get back to that in a moment. I'll tell you what, let's go out to the phone lines here. The tribal troll himself. Let's acknowledge him.
Acknowledge me.
Mr. Roger Shue, welcome to the Evolution. You're on with yours truly, along with Jason Powers, Powers on Sports Podcast and No Quarter Given Podcast on the BuckPower.com network. Go ahead, my friend.
Jason Powers, you are a busy man.
Yes, sir. We try to provide some content for the people.
That's it. That's what we're trying to do on a Tuesday night. And you text me and give me problems about my intro. Well, let me tell you there, smart guy. The intro I had on last night got flagged by YouTube. So unless you want the channel canceled, you got to go with the intro that you got. Sorry about that.
Why didn't you let me know that? Well, I'm a moderator. I should know these things.
I'm doing a live show here, my friend. What am I supposed to do? You're producing on there?
I was just calling in to say, great show. You guys are killing it.
Thank you.
And Tuesdays can go to hell.
Well, Tuesdays could definitely go to hell. But what do you think about this Bucs coaching situation? You like these offensive coordinator candidates here? Jim Bob Cooter?
He's got my vote 100%. I love that name. I don't care. I don't care. He's my pick, hands down.
You're such an idiot.
This guy sucks.
How can you not like Jim Bob Cooter?
Oh, God. I knew you would be the guy. It was either going to be
if
you or Harry or
Tampa
Ray.
Bay than Jim Bob Cooter, I don't know what is. That's Florida, man.
All right, man. Thanks a lot for the call. Anything else?
You guys. No, that's it, man. Just keep on. Great show, and I'll keep watching.
All right. Appreciate you, Roger Shue, the tribal troll.
Acknowledge me.
Acknowledge him, and then I'll do this.
This guy sucks.
All right. Enough of that. With that being said, we talked about it. Keenan McCardell, never called any plays. I asked J.C. Allen about this. Do you think this is where the NFL, the direction that they're going in, guys, you don't necessarily have to be an offensive coordinator? And is that smart and intelligent by the Bucs to look at a guy like McCardell, who's a fan favorite, played in the National Football League, had some great success, and had some great success with the Minnesota Vikings this year with one of the top offenses in the league.
But he ain't calling plays in Minnesota. That's Kevin O'Connell, please. Come on.
Right. Well,
but I will say it's good. You want to give these position coach guys who you identify as really good position coaches, they need an opportunity. Again, may not be here in Tampa. There's 10 OC jobs available in the NFL right now, which is a big number. So there'll be some guys out there, teams that are looking to hire again, depends on the state of your team. If you're a team that's ready to win, I don't think you're going to hire a guy who's never called plays. But if you're a team that's maybe in a rebuild mode, and we don't know what the Buccaneers situation is, we don't know which way they're leaning, rebuild, reload, what it is. If you're in a rebuild situation, maybe you go with a young guy who's never called plays, a McCardell, a Clint Kubiak, that will grow with the quarterback and the offensive talent that you have. That's the key question the Bucs have to answer. Are they in a rebuild mode, or are they still going to go for it here with depending on what quarterback they bring in?
Surprised by Todd Bowles' comments saying we don't rebuild, we reload. I mean, it kind of gives it away, right? I mean, and you kind of got to say that because
you have to say that if you're the head coach.
At the end of the day, he's getting an opportunity, getting a second year. I don't believe in firing first-year coaches, but I have my doubts about Todd Bowles. Again, defensive-minded. Was that Byron Leftwich? Who knows what's going to change in 2023? He's talked about culture, changing the culture there.
Yep.
Interesting comments by Todd Bowles.
Of course, he understands the pressure that's going to be on him next year. He knows, and again, it's all going to depend on which way Jason Light and them and the organization decide to go quarterback. If they can get a Derek Carr, if they can get if Brady comes back, if a guy like Aaron Rodgers were ever available, there's going to be some quarterback movement. Maybe a Kirk Cousins gets let go or gets traded. There are going to be some guys out there with some winning pedigree that are going to be available if the Buccaneers want to make a run at somebody like that. Or do they say, you know what, we're gonna break it down. We're gonna give Kyle Trask a year. We just don't know yet. We don't know what the Bucs are gonna do with the salary cap situation. Again, there's a lot of credit card bills that have to be paid, being that they've kicked the can down the road the last couple of years with these signing bonuses and all that. So there's going to be some carnage with the roster to some degree, and there's going to be some Buccaneer names that aren't going to be Buccaneers anymore that the general fan is not going to understand why, but they won't be Buccaneers next year.
Give me a name. Speculate. Give me a name that you think could be on the chopping block that nobody would say or be surprised.
Levante David.
I think that's a name that you definitely have to look at the end.
He's a free agent, so he could probably leave, but that's not a guarantee they're going to re-sign Levante David. Especially, he's going to want his, he's been making $10-12 million. He's not going to take $5 million to come back. He would be a guy that a close to the championship level team would sign to a 1 or 2 year deal and give him $8 or $10 million. I don't know if he comes back to Tampa. Another guy, a couple guys. I've got the whole list of free agents here. Again, Donovan Smith. We don't know what, I don't think he has any guaranteed money left. So I think the Bucs could cut him and take a pretty minor salary cap hit.
Sure.
Could Donovan Smith be gone? And I would hate to say this, but could a guy like Mike Evans maybe be in play as a trade partner? Again, if they decide to go full rebuild, Mike Evans is probably not going to want to be involved in a full rebuild. If they tell Mike Evans we're going a full rebuild, he might be a guy that could draw some draft capital back to you. He could be a guy potentially to not come back.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because he's in a free agency year next year, and that he's getting up there in age, even though he hit 1,000 yards receiving, and this offense at some points during the year forgot about him, but he still can make plays, and I think a team like the Chicago Bears would definitely be interested. For me, just watching football, if T. Higgins isn't the first call you make, Chicago Bears, you're wrong. Tell you what, let's shift gears. Let's talk about the playoffs a little bit. How surprised were you by those results this weekend, Jason Powers?
Not really. Not too much. I think the one game that I thought I was surprised of how it went, not who won. I was surprised Cincinnati was as dominant as they were against Buffalo. I didn't expect them to get beat that soundly at home. Especially with the Bengal offensive line problems, give Cincinnati credit. They dominated that line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Buffalo's defense was not, no Von Miller is obviously a big loss for them. But for them to be as as susceptible as they were to the Cincinnati running game with Mixon. I was surprised at that. A little surprised they couldn't generate more offense. I figured that had been a little more high-scoring game than it was. But give the Bengals credit. They have created a culture there with Zach Taylor and Burrow that they are a gritty, gutty team. Wasn't surprised with Kansas City winning. Obviously, the Mahomes injury will be a factor this week in the championship game.
Major factor.
Major
factor, because you could see against Jacksonville, he was trying to be mobile, and that's his game. At the end of the day, he's going to try to move the pocket, run out left, run out right, step into the pocket, make things happen, do something. And he wasn't able to do that. And then furthermore, I think Cincinnati, and I'll just throw it out there again, Cincinnati is the most dangerous team in the National Football League, and they could win the Super Bowl. They really could.
I'm going to tell you this.
Yes.
Everybody's saying Cincinnati is going to go to Arrowhead and beat them for a fourth straight time. Everybody's saying, oh, Mahomes can't do it. He's hurt. Be careful. Be careful.
True.
In Arrowhead, one thing I liked about Kansas City, that they're doing more and more of that they haven't done as much in years past. They're running the ball better. Pacheco, McKinnon, even your boy gets a couple touches. Rojo.
Oh, jeez. Volume. No, you're right. And Pacheco, he looks like Tyreek Hill as a running back. I mean, he's that explosive. He had big play against Jacksonville, really turned the tide. They struggled with them with Mahomes being injured. Mahomes was still able.
Kansas City offensive line is legit, though.
Right.
They're not going to be – Buffalo's offensive line was not great.
No.
Kansas City in that building, it's going to be a more – again, everybody's – I know Mahomes will not be what he's been, but he'll still be able to move. He's great at moving around in the pocket. Again, will he be running for 10 or 12 yards? No, but he's excellent at moving around in the pocket to create those second reaction throws. And they're good enough on the outside with MVS, with Juju, and you got the unstoppable force of Kelsey. If Kansas City can run the ball, look out. Don't give – again, Cincinnati's a hell of a team, and it's going to be a great game. But don't count out Kansas City just because Mahomes has hobbled a little bit here.
Well, the reason why I'm doing that is because Joe Burrow. I mean, the way he played with 3 offensive linemen out.
I agree.
All year long with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers having their fair share of injuries and retirements, and still this team is able to overcome it. And they've been able to overcome it the last 2 years with Joe Burrow. He's still playing at a high level. You have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Like I said, Higgins should be in a Chicago Bear uniform tomorrow whenever he's a free agent, because he's definitely got everything you want in number one wide receiver. Not only youth, athleticism, he's a mismatch nightmare. If I'm him, I would stay with Cincinnati, but I definitely think there's a team like the Bears or somebody out there that's going to overpay for him.
Here's the question.
Yes.
Can the Kansas City defense stop Cincinnati? To me, that might be the biggest matchup, because, I mean, Kansas City gives up a lot of yards. What they've done well is they've made plays in the red zone. You saw the Jacks. Again, that was kind of an unforced fumble against Jacksonville, but they're pretty good at making plays in the red zone. Chris Jones is a factor on the interior. That's where they're exposed, with Cincinnati's missing some guys. Is the guard position. Kappa's out. The center's hobbled. The other guard's out. So I think that's where Chris Jones could make some hay. But again, can their DBs cover the receivers you talked about? That will be a major factor in this game as well, Sunday in Arrowhead.
It definitely be a major factor, and I feel like what makes Cincinnati so dangerous is the X factors, and that's the run game with Joe Mixon and Green there. If they're able to run the ball, you can do so many things down the field with pass play action, and they love to throw the ball down the field. This other matchup here, I've been saying San Francisco, I felt like was the best team, but they showed me they're not as good as I thought they were, with Brock Purdy being at the controls, coming into the game, averaging 35 points a game. Give credit to where credit is due. Micah Parsons, Dan Quinn, and that defense.
Dallas defense is good.
Yes, very good.
And they played very well Sunday.
Yes, absolutely played very well. You know who didn't play well? Dak Prescott, 2 interceptions once again. And it goes back to it. You are what you say. You Dennis Green, right? Say who you are. You are what you are. Dak Prescott this year has been a turnover machine. When you get pressure on him, and he was feeling that pressure, he was able to throw interceptions. And once again, somebody has to explain to me that final play by Mike McCarthy. What are you trying to accomplish? I get it. You're trying to get down the field, but you put Ezekiel Elliott in there as a blocker. He gets trucked down.
You're not scoring a 75-yard touchdown. I don't care what play you call. The disappointing part was the 2 plays prior to. Dalton Schultz gets tackled in bounds, and then the inexplicable part of Dalton Schultz not getting a second foot down, which would have allowed Dallas to at least potentially throw a Hail Mary into the end zone if he gets his foot down. So you can't kill Mike McCarthy for the last play of the game. They weren't scoring that game. Again, goofy formation, I get it, but they weren't scoring a touchdown there. So
they weren't scoring a touchdown because Mike McCarthy and the clock management issues were the thing that cost them. Also, with that being said,
the play of the game was the interception by Prescott in the red zone at the end of the first half. The first play after Tony Pollard breaks his leg, the next play after that was the interception. And remember, let's don't let Kyle Shanahan off the hook. He got as lucky as you could be at the end of the first half. He was going to let the clock run out, and he wasted about 30 seconds of the clock before he called the timeout. And then he got very fortunate. They had a couple completions and kicked a late field goal. But to me, that was the big 6-point swing there at the end of that first half.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. You get fortunate. We're on with Jason Powers on Sports Podcast.
I like Philadelphia, by the way.
I like Philadelphia too. And I think Jalen Hurts didn't have to do too much. But the key, again, was the running game. You run for over 250 yards, 268 rushing yards by the Philadelphia Eagles on a New York Giants squad that was coming in with all the momentum. But once again,
they weren't nearly good enough.
No. And then Daniel Jones reverts back to Jones, turning over the ball.
Bro, let's be truthful.
Yes.
Daniel Jones is throwing to me and you on the outside in New York right now.
I think we're a little bit faster, and we can also.
If I'm T. Higgins, the New York Giants is not a bad place to go either. If you're looking for because you're going to get a guy like him would be good in a New York Giant uniform, a big body, kind of a Plaxico Burress kind of guy.
Oh yeah,
he looked pretty good there in New York too.
He definitely looked good, and you're going to have to overpay for a guy like that because he's going to get multiple offers unless you convince him. To take less money because you're trying to set up a super team, but it usually goes out. The danger in that, just go back to some Bucs history, and I don't think he is that, but you never know, right? I mean, the Bucs a long time ago, they try to get Alvin Harper. Yep,
you're right.
And he's on the other side of Michael Irvin. People will say, well, he's on the other side of Jamar Chase, so now he's going to get that double team coverage. So there's always a risk out there, but I just feel like with Chase being out this year injured, he came in, stepped right in. The offense really didn't miss a beat. I feel like that's the guy you got to tab as your number one wide receiver. So give me your picks here on Sunday, Championship Sunday. Who's going to Super Bowl 57 in Arizona?
I like in the AFC. I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs.
I knew you would. I knew you were going to do that. It's hard not to because you got Patrick Mahomes, you got Andy Reid. They've been there. They've done it before.
Here's why.
Right.
They're due. They've lost 3 in a row to the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, like I said, everybody's taking the Bengals. And again, give them all the credit. They're a hell of a team. I just have a feeling somehow, some way, Mahomes and that offense is going to figure out a way. I think the running game is going to be big. Pacheco, him and Jerick McKinnon are going to be hard matchups for the Cincinnati defense. That Cincinnati defense ain't great. They're good. They do their job. But I think Kelsey with McKinnon and Pacheco are going to be difference makers for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to say 30-24 Kansas City at home ends the losing streak to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals.
All right, and the other side here, Philadelphia versus the San Francisco 49ers. You already have a distraction there. Their defensive end gets arrested for domestic violence. I'm trying to come up with his name right now.
Omenahu.
Charles Omenahu faces allegations, a suspicion of misdemeanor domestic violence. That's not a good, and I don't think he's going to play in this game. Do I think it's going to affect the team? I'm not sure, but it's not a good optic at the end of the day. You don't want to talk about that. You want to focus on the Philadelphia Eagles, which I believe are going to be very tough to defend, even with that 49er defense. So how do you see this game playing out?
This is a game where I see, again, both defenses are good. I see both teams moving the ball. Again, to me, the difference is going to be Jalen Hurts and his ability to throw the ball against that 49er defense. When you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Goddard, Those are 3 tough matchups, and you can't commit all your resources on the back end to cover those guys, or else they're going to run the ball. Probably the best offensive line in football running the ball, that Eagles line against probably the best defensive line in football. That's going to be a huge matchup. How does San Francisco play it? Do they try to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands to throw the ball, or do they try to stack the line to stop the running game? To me, or do they try to stop the running game with just 7 guys? To me, that's going to be a key matchup. I think San Francisco-wise, I think Philly's defense is a little underrated. I think their corners, Bradbury and Slay, are going to be able to match up pretty good against Samuel and Ayuk. And again, how do you match up versus George Kittle? Remember this name, Chauncey, a guy from the Saints we know and love. And don't love, actually. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Yep.
He'll be a guy that probably gets the matchup with George Kittle a lot. How does that matchup go? Who wins that matchup? And can Brock Purdy go on the road in a brutally hostile environment in Philadelphia and win the biggest game of his life?
That's the big-time story there, and I think the 49ers have been exposed, especially in that secondary with DK Metcalf and his success in the first round, being able to get deep. You look at CeeDee Lamb in the game he had last week. A.J. Brown, to me, is a mismatch nightmare. Then on the other side, you had Devontae Smith. You also have Dallas Goedert at tight end. That is a tough matchup. That's why I like Philadelphia in that game. I like Cincinnati and Philadelphia to go to Super Bowl 57.
And remember Jalen Hurts in the running game, too. You saw he ran the ball last week. They didn't cover him. They didn't protect him. They're not going to protect him this week. They're going to run him 8 or 10 times. You'll see, again, whether it's short yardage or goal or red zone stuff, he'll be that extra guy in the running game. That will be a factor for you. And again, Philly does a great job on the offensive line making these holes. They've got diverse running backs. They've got a variety of different guys that they lean on. But I think Jalen Hurts will be the difference here. 27-17, Philadelphia rolls to the Super Bowl to see the Kansas City Chiefs. And you're going to have Andy Reid coaching against his former team, the Philadelphia Eagles.
What a storyline that would be. Great stuff there, Jason Powers. Go ahead and promote yourself here on the Evolution of Sports Talk Television.
Yeah, check us out, Powers on Sports Podcast. No Quarter Given podcast. We'll be putting out an episode this week with No Quarter Given, kind of summarizing the Bucs regular season and looking towards kind of free agency a little bit. And we'll talk about the OC, the coaching hire, potentially the coaching hires. Again, my YouTube channel, Jason Powers Sports Channel on YouTube. All of our podcast interviews from all my podcasts that we've done all throughout the year. So if you missed something, check it out. I had the Senior Bowl, director of the Senior Bowl on last week, Jim Nagy, talking about the Senior Bowl coming up in a couple weeks in Mobile, Alabama.
Nice.
So talking about the potential future Buccaneers that you're going to see in that game. Again, we talk sports all year round. And again, you and I will be kicking it on the No Quarter Given podcast that'll come out later this week.
There you go, right there, Mr. Jason Powers. Powers on Sports Podcast, No Quarter Given podcast on the BuckPower.com network. Thanks a lot for your time here on the Evolution. All right.
One more thing.
Yes.
If any of the fans out there, if you need a home mortgage, I'm a lender. So if you're looking to buy a house, a townhouse, a condo, give me a call, 205-790-1404. Let's get you approved. Let's get you into a home as we get into the spring, right before the draft.
I feel like we got an idea kind of brewing here on the Sports Web. We'll talk more, my friend. We'll definitely try to promote that. Thanks a lot for your time, as always, Jason Powers.
You got it, buddy. See you soon.
All right, tag team partner of the world right there, Mr. Jason Powers. Let's go out to the comments, and we'll wrap this puppy up. It wasn't so bad. Kind of like eating vegetables, which I don't necessarily like to do, but I've done before on a Tuesday night. Not the biggest fan. Okay, so we read that comment. Eric says, Bucs player said Tom Brady not coming back. Unnamed. That was a source from Ian Rappaport. Of course, you trust him. What Bucs players were those? Is that going to be the determining factor if he comes back or not? They assume. I get it. They got something to write. You got your clicks and stuff like that you got to put out there. Ian Rappaport is a trusted source. He's done this for a long time. So, yes, I know there's a lot of Bucs fans out there that were disappointed with that. But right now, we'll see how it all plays out. And it's going to play out sooner than later. We'll have it for you here on the Evolution. Let's see here. Troy says he failed at Penn State. He fell with the Texans. He's another stooge. People think he's good because he was under Bill Belichick, like McDaniels and Patricia. I think he's done a good job as an offensive coordinator. As a coach, as a GM, yes, he definitely has his faults. But you know what? That's actually a really good
Flawless victory.
comment by you, Troy. So I'll give you something. The Beard is back. Another great show. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you as always.
Yeah.
Let's go out to Mike here. Despite Harry the Greek's assertion, which can change on a whim, Tom Brady does want to be here. And again, that's how Harry feels. That's his opinion. That's what we got here on the sports web. Different perspectives. You know, we had Mitchell Renz of Chat Sports tell you he's hearing the Raiders. We've heard from Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport that it's the Raiders. Some people out there are saying the Dolphins. Some people are saying the San Francisco 49ers. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. They're in the business. They hear things. Do I think they're making this stuff up? No. Do I think where there's smoke, there's fire? Yes, there's something to pay attention to. That's why we talk about it here. I know there's people that kind of roll their eyes and, well, can we just move on? No, we can't move on until this decision is made for this team going forward in 2023. So he feels like Tom Brady doesn't want to be here. That's his opinion. You're able to have that opinion here on the Evolution. Troy says, why on earth would Sean Payton go to the Bucs when he's a Saints man? That's like Peter going to Bucs Report, and for that you get this.
That's great enough to suck right there.
Because you know I started out with Bucs Report, and it didn't necessarily work out, and we're doing different things here in 2023. But you keep on bringing up the past, don't you, Troy? Don't you?
This guy sucks.
It's not out of the realm of possibility that the Bucs without Brady could still win the division in 2023, seeing that the other three teams in our division are either in the beginning stages of rebuilding or are in the middle of rebuilding. Great comment as always, Ben.
How about them Bucks, baby?
Eric says right about that. Ben says if Jim Bob Cooter ends up being the offensive coordinator for the Bucs, he needs to sport a Kentucky waterfall mullet on the sidelines during games. That should be a requirement with names like him.
This guy sucks.
You know what? I was going to...
Shitter!
It's actually a good comment. Hey, everyone. What's going on? Christopher Cole, thanks a lot for tuning into the Evolution. Senile Senor. Interesting name, by the way, whoever that is. So far, Brady's either Tampa Bay or he retires. That's what I'm hearing here. Let's go out to Senile again. Tech problems. JC confirms. Drew says, preach it, Peter. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Scott says, Chiefs versus the Eagles in the Super Bowl. We shall see. Good stuff, Scott. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Peter Blake voted best here on the podcast. Thank you very much. Yes, I got it done from my buddy Castro, who does a phenomenal job trimming up the beard and, of course, making me right. So thank you very much, Scott. Appreciate you as always. And Henny can win with the weapons in case he has. Not so sure about that. He has been in the league for a long time, 38-year-old backup. He does know the offense, but come on. Patrick Mahomes, if he's not necessarily 100%, I have my doubts because, again, I feel like Cincinnati could win that game and win that game outright. Thanks to all the guests tonight. Tampa Bay, Ray Kennedy, even with the tech problems, we'll get him back on here eventually. Thanks for the effort. Of course, JC Allen of Pewter Report and Jason Powers on Sports Podcast and No Quarter Given Podcast. Definitely tune in again. Like and subscribe to the Sports Web on YouTube. Like I Love St. Pete, The Hub, and Amped Up Sports, and do 3 things for me on this Tuesday night. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Bring your passion. Bring your excitement. Just don't bring any nonsense. I'm your host, Peter Blake, your Rolex reporter. What time is it? It's my time. And Bucs fans and fans of the Sports Web, it's your time. By the way, this broadcast is dedicated to my Meemaw up there in heaven. Love you, Meemaw. Have a good night.